hold it too close.
Okay, so why don't we put that one on the other side of the table so I don't have to run? Looks like we are all set. So good morning. Oops, excuse me. My name is Alexa Viles. I'm the chair of the Youth Board. Welcome to the Youth Board and to the Youth Committee for our first meeting of this year. Welcome back from your summer. Hopefully you've had some breaks and vacations and enjoyed the summertime, and fall is here with a fury. So thank you all for being here this morning. We really appreciate it. We have a full agenda. But first, I'd like to welcome a new member to the Youth Board, Mr. Clayman. So, Mr. Clayman, we'd love for you to maybe introduce yourself, and if you could tell the board members why you're interested in participating here in the Youth Board.
Is this on?
It's on now.
Yes, name is Chuck Clayman. I'm an attorney. Law firm is Clayman and Rosenberg. I've been in New York now for 50 years. I came from Massachusetts, and I still think I'm going to get back there, but I doubt it. I spent a lot of my time, a criminal defense lawyer, but I spent a great deal of time. I have a son with learning differences, learning disabilities, and I spent a lot of time on boards at the Churchill School and Winston School. I was on the Ale House board after the problems. One interesting story, I actually represented Mother Hale's son-in-law, but when the matter ended, Zach Carter, the head of the board, asked me to come on the board, and I was happy to do that. And so when this opportunity came up, I grabbed it. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Clayman. We are excited to have you as part of this group. And then I guess if we could very quickly, if everyone could just introduce themselves and say whether you're on the Youth Board or Youth Committee to orient us, and I guess we'll start.
Bill Chong, Commissioner. George Hulse, Ilma Hill Plan.
Hi, Jordana Lee from Lincoln Center.
Good morning, Cynthia Malave-Baez, DYCD staff.
Lucy Friedman, Pinkerton Foundation.
Good morning, Jeanette Rodriguez with Nike, and I'm on the Youth Board.
Good morning, Greg Hambrake, Model Sporting Goods, and I'm on the Youth Committee.
Sarah Marks, I'm DYCD's Director of Intergovernmental Affairs.
Good morning, my name is Shagita Smith. I am the Systems and Content Engagement Specialist with the Office of Stakeholders and Communication Agent. Thank you.
What?
The Office of Strategic Communication and Stakeholder Engagement, so the new office within our PPI unit at DYCDS, I'm sorry.
Jackie Chang, Youth Board. Nancy Waxy, Youth Board, Fordham University.
Hi, Liz Krebs, the Youth Board, and with the Ziegler Family Foundation.
Tom Pendleton, New York City Department of Education. I'm on the Youth Committee. And I apologize, I have to leave at 9:45 today.
Peter McCree, Youth Board, also President of Lincoln Consult.
Good morning, Gary Jenkins, First Deputy Commissioner for New York City Human Resources Administration.
Good morning, Anthony Ng, Deputy Chief of Staff, DYCD.
Great, so next on the agenda we'll have the Commissioner's remarks.
So, summer is our busiest month, as you can see from the 4-page report, which I will not repeat. So you can read it at your leisure. I want to highlight a few things, some of which are not in the report. I want to talk briefly about the budget. I keep on saying we've hit a new record high, and so this year's budget, which was adopted in June, was 954 million, which just shy of $1 billion. And by comparison, at the start of this administration, we were just above 400 million. Now, at the end of the first term, I said to my staff, the days of exponential growth are behind us, and for the most part, our baseline funding, which is this year-to-year funding that runs multiple years, has actually stabilized, and actually had a slight cut last year in the baseline funding. The growth last year and the year before was all one-year funding added to our budget by the City Council. So we appreciate the support the Council gives us, but it also brings unique challenges to getting money out the door and making sure services are up and running. So I just want people to see the cloud over the sunshine, that, you know, things are always never as good as they seem they are. And as the economy slows down, I'm concerned, like most commissioners are, about what impact it will have on our city's budget. And we'll have a better sense probably in the January, February, what's called the preliminary budget plan, as to whether additional cuts might be needed. Other things that are happening, yesterday we launched the Discover DYCD Universal Online Application. It's something that I think we did a focus group last year, and for the first time, New Yorkers can apply for any program that we fund online. So we're phasing it in, so the after-school programs, literacy, and our community centers were in the first cohort of programs that were released. Over the next 16 months, programs will be added, and so we're doing a lot of social media to help encourage people to use it. We're working with our partners at HRA and ACS, so that when they work with people, they can connect them to services that they don't fund, but we fund. The other thing that I want to highlight are a couple of things that talk about how I think the work we're doing here in doing service integration and implementing what I call the settlement house approach is being replicated around the city. The Children's Cabinet has a new executive director, Will Yang, who I've met with, and I think he understands the value of getting city agencies to work together. You know, it seems simple, but it really isn't. And so the focus for the next 27 months of this administration of the Children's Cabinet is to do service integration. Now, whether we can integrate or at least coordinate, and that's what I'm hoping will happen. They're setting up focus work groups over the next few months around different age groups. I'm co-chairing the age group for services for ages 10 to 24, pretty broad, middle school, high school, and post-college. And the Children's Cabinet is comprised of the Department of Education, ACS, HRA, probation, pretty much any city agency that works with young people is part of the Children's Cabinet. 24 agencies. So I think what we're doing is hopefully being in the vanguard of what the city should be doing. The other thing that we're working on, and Anthony is leading this effort, we're starting a conversation with Philanthropy New York to plan a panel discussion to coincide with the 100th anniversary of United Neighborhood Houses, which Nancy headed. And so whether it be this fall or in the spring, we want to do a panel discussion with United Neighborhood Houses, myself, the Manhattan DA, and possibly some other funders to talk about 100 years later, what can settlement houses teach us today? And the basic approach about looking at the whole person is, instead of a program participant, and how do we begin to have this holistic approach to serving people. So once we, I know Anthony has a call with them this week, and once we finalize the date, well, I'm not sure if they open it up to the public, it's just foundations. We'll find out. And so some of you actually are from foundations, like Nike, so you could attend if they went into foundations. And Lucy, since you're with a foundation. But again, I emphasize those things because what we want to do at DYCD, we hope will lay the groundwork for change throughout the city. And so, okay, glad to take any questions.
No questions? Great, thank you, Commissioner. There's so much exciting stuff happening. So next we're going to move on to our approval of our June 2019 meeting minutes. They were circulated via email to everyone, and they're in your packets. if there's any changes or additions, if anyone would like to pass a motion. Yeah, would you like a couple minutes to look at the meeting minutes? Or are we ready to move forward?
Motion to approve.
All in favor? Great, thank you so much. Next, we're going to move on to our annual election of youth board officers. This part of the agenda just applies to those of you who are youth board members. But because this is our annual meeting, our bylaw states that we have the elections for youth officers. So I'd like to turn it over to Nancy Waxstein, who is part of the Standards, Rules, and Nominations Committee.
Yes. Especially rules, yeah. I had sent out at Alexa's request, I had sent out an email to everybody asking for nominations, recognizing that two of our current officers, Liz Cribbs and Jordana, are, what's your last name now, Jordana? Our incumbents were willing to serve, and we had overwhelming support for renominating both of you, and from those who responded. So I think we can, our committee can put forward your names for election. That's all we have to do, right?
Yep. The board will, I guess, the proposed slate is to nominate Liz Cribbs for vice chair and Jordana Lay for secretary and engagement officer. And if we move forward with a vote.
Yeah, and I think people who responded noted that Liz and Jordana have done an outstanding job, and so would like to see them continue if you're willing. Yes. If nominated, you will run, right? So I guess then all those in favor? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think so.
Aye. Okay, any abstentions, opposed? No. Well, congratulations.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
And we do this every year, right, Alexa?
Yes, as per the bylaws, we have annual elections, which is something we will potentially talk about later today as part of the meeting. So thank you, and it's really been my pleasure to work with Jordana and Liz over this past year. They have been really exceptional members, ever present and willing to try new things and engage. So I'm delighted to continue to work with you. So thank you. Next, we're gonna move on to reports about member engagement. So as the commissioner noted, summer is a busy time for the agency, and certainly we have had no shortage of board member engagement in the summer months. And so we like to, given the priorities of member engagement for the board, do shout outs and really thank people for all the additional time that they're contributing to the agency, to our young people in the city. And so I guess there are a few members who've done some work over the summer, and we'd certainly invite them to maybe talk a little bit about what their experience is before we jump into our presentation. So over the summer, we've had engagement around SYEP, engagement on Ladders for Leaders. There was a big event for the Big Chair and the 5K run. And we've also had dads take your kids to the after school event, of which board members have participated in. And I guess I'll start off with, my foundation hosted a Ladders for Leaders this summer, and also I was able to reach out to other small social justice foundations to also take Ladders for Leaders and coordinate with an existing internship program that's run by another kind of funder in the space. And so It was a fantastic experience. The young person brought incredible energy to our space. Our foundation is a relatively quiet space, and we were happy to have laughter and new energy and lots of questions around the work that we are doing, and quite a lot of feedback. So it was a really great experience. We planned to have the other interns, they met throughout the summer to give them a bit of a cohort experience. All the foundations that participated are small shops. We're talking, total staff of 4. So it was important that for us that they talk to each other to kind of compare notes around what these weird institutions do and how they get their money and how they dispense with those resources. And it was really interesting. Our intern had mentioned to me that she is a second-year sophomore student, and she was always afraid of this public policy class and felt like it was just too overwhelming, right? That it felt so far out there for her to kind of grasp. And she said after her experience and really interrogating both what foundations do and the expanse of the nonprofit sector, and the things that they do and all the ways that community members are touched. She actually enrolled in the class immediately, and she was like, I'm ready now to tackle this class, and I have so much to say about it. And we were so delighted. And it was just one of many examples I could point to during the summer. So our hope is to expand the engagement and hopefully get much more placements for Ladders for Leaders in philanthropy over this next year. But the charge to all of us is how do we get more ladders into more sectors across the city? So that's something I hope we can continue to work on together. That was a lot more than I intended to say. Obviously, I'm excited. But if any of the other members who participated in the Big Chair or SYEP placements or the dads take your kids to after school event are here and want to mention anything, that would be great.
So good morning, everyone. As the commissioner know, and again, Greg Hamrick, Modell Sporting Goods, family-owned retailer here in the city. We've been hosting SYEP participants, I don't even remember how many years now. We've been doing it so much, it's actually become a strategic part of our summer recruitment. We hosted, I want to say, somewhere about 220 participants throughout the 5 boroughs. So they're in all of our retail stores in the boroughs, as well as our distribution center, which is in the Bronx. We hired or offered jobs, permanent part-time jobs, to 15% of those participants that are working right now. After school jobs, right. So it's been a great partnership. It lends itself to Modell's working closely with the community, but also the way I stress it, because I oversee the administration of this for our organization, that there are always other ways to employ young people. Listen, we can go to the schools and we can recruit online and we can go to the colleges, but there's a segment of youth that's always missed, that don't have access to all those resources, and I think that's where SYEP plays an important part. So, we do a big part in terms of that partnership. Subsequently, the Work, Learn, and Grow program, which is a hybrid version of the SYE program that starts in October and I think runs into April and May of next year. We participated in that program as well, and we're looking to employ somewhere about 70 to 80 people in various locations in the 5 boroughs. So it's been a successful partnership thus far.
Thank you so much, Greg. That's so exciting. Nice to show me up 200 to 300. I'm like, we got 4.
Well, listen, this is off. With 45 locations in the city, it makes it easier. We should be doing that with about 5 to 7 in each store. So
aim high. I got 4, but I'm coming for you.
It's all good.
I had 1, so you're ahead of me.
That's fantastic. just noted, Reggie, Youth Board member Reggie Miller might be on the phone. Reggie, can you hear us? Okay. Okay, maybe not. So.
Reggie? I'm here. Okay.
There.
All right. Reggie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Do you? I know that you participated in an event with one of our providers this summer, right? The Big Red Chair. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So we had most of what they needed for that, so they shifted me over to something else. On the particular day that I went, so it was mostly just hanging out with the kids, running some athletic activities, and participating that way, and sort of engaging with the kids in that particular fashion. But it was interesting. It was a good time.
Great. Thank you.
Short and sweet.
You know what to do around here.
So maybe I could talk about the last one, Dad, take your kids to after school event. This actually is an event that's coming up on September 17th. And for many years, we've been doing a Dad, take your kids to school event in the morning. And last year was the first year where we decided, and this was the commissioner's idea, to do a Dad, take your kids to after school event. So you can drop your kids off in the morning and then go to see them in after school and participate with them. We have to give shout out to Liz Cribbs here because we had in May a program committee's event where the fatherhood team presented about the program, and Liz loved it. She said that, hey, it is a way for Newburgh Berman to support this. Newburgh Berman's been a great supporter of DYCD over the years with Summer of Service and now Smiles of Love gift drive. And while Liz has since moved on from Newburgh Berman, her colleague Maria was able to work with us over the summer to secure some donations for this day. So on the 17th, the Dad Take Your Kids to After School event, there's going to be it's held at 5 sites. The commissioner's attending the site in Queens, and Newburgh Berman is donating 5 Lego Creative Boost sets, which are like STEM kits and sets that the youth and the fathers and other caregivers or family members can have that activity on that day. So. Thank you, Liz, for having started that, and your colleague carried it on, and we look forward to working with you in your new role at Ziegler Family Foundation. So,
thank you, Anthony, and yes.
I just want, I'll talk a little about it. So one of the things that's not on the agenda, but want to recognize is, thank you. So at Nike we had something called Go Play Day, and we worked with the sites to identify. So we hosted 300 plus kids in Flushing where we took them through experiences at a Flushing Meadows soccer field that we refurbished, but also a skate park. But really exciting at City Field. So the kids were actually able to play baseball where the Mets play. So it was a really exciting day where Nike employees came out as volunteers, but we hosted 300 plus DYCD staff. And to coordinate those efforts, just kudos on the DYCD side, helping us manage that. And the individual site directors that mobilized really quickly to give kids such a great experience.
Right.
So with that, thank you all, and thanks for the applauses to all of you for that incredible engagement. And we're going to keep it going because the theme this year is to be as active as we can be, to bring young people as much opportunity as we possibly can, and make positive change. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So next we're going to move on to a presentation on DemocracyCorps event by Cynthia Malave-Baez. Since civic engagement and youth voice has been a real interest of this board and the committee, we're excited to have this presentation about DYCD's first DemocracyCorps Day of Action that was held on August 13th. The day highlighted civic engagement themed project-based learning that younger youth from SYEP, the 14 and 15-year-olds, were exposed to this summer. Thank you, Cynthia, and we look forward to our presentation.
Thank you, and good morning again. I am a deputy director within the SYEP team and the workforce division of our agency. And so under my portfolio, I oversee the school-based partnership, and I also supported the implementation of project-based learning experiences, which I hope you all know that it's, you know, part of the redesign of the SYEP model. Under the project-based learning experiences, we were offering experiences to 14 and 15-year-old young people to be part of project-based learning and have a more engaged experience this summer. And in connection to that work with project-based learning, we partner with the Deputy Mayor's Office of Strategic Policy to create an opportunity to elevate civic engagement. So the DemocracyCorps Day of Action, which Ms. Aviles just referenced, was a culminating event to the 6-week engagement that we had with younger youth, 14, 15-year-olds. And as I said, you know, the why was an opportunity to connect and elevate the project-based learning to civic engagement. And so we engaged a subset of our younger youth. We engaged with 5 specific agencies to pilot this year's initiative. We worked with CAMBA, the Bean Center, with Children's Aid, United Activity Unlimited, UAU, and sorry, Children's Aid, Bean, UAU, CAMBA, and I feel like I'm missing one agency, I'm sorry. It might come to me. And so through all of those 5 agencies, we engaged the portfolio. As I said, it was a subset, so there were 3,000 young people involved in this initiative, with the goal of engaging them with civic engagement projects and the connection to workforce experiences. So through those project-based learning experiences, they were developing work readiness skills. They were in the community engaged on projects focused on the themes we identified as priorities for our agency. So they engaged on environmental justice. They were surveying the community, identifying problems, and then coming up with plans of actions, as well as for the census 2020. We know that that's coming up next year, and so they were at their interest, identifying community needs, how the census is going to impact their communities, even learning that the funding that is attached to the census, and then disseminating information to the community, creating flyers, mobilizing in social media. Then for voter registration, they were learning about the importance of voter registration. Oh, I just remember the 5th agency, LaGuardia Community College. And so they engaged around all of the themes, but LaGuardia really took big representation when it came to voter registration, creating community action, disseminating the importance of voting and the impact it has in their communities. And then as it relates to community engagement, that was the mobilizing part. So going into the community, sharing this important message, and then engaging them and encouraging everybody to take action around the themes that they identified. So the connection to project-based learning was that, you know, they were looking at these themes and then identifying what the problem was, and doing research, and then taking action by culminating at the DemocracyCorps Day of Action. So I want to show a video that is a recap of the event.
Deputy Mayor Bill Thompson in order to really encourage young people to become very active within their own community so they become agents of change. I think for us within the SYEP portfolio at USCB, this is a great opportunity working with our providers and local stakeholders to create an environment where young people can actually learn how to become change agents within their own communities.
I worked on the census because it's a big issue right now. It's coming up, Census 2020. And so I feel like it's an issue that needs to be addressed now later than ever. So I feel like if people know about the census in our community, more people are likely to fill it out, and then we're able to get more funding out to our communities.
Youth action means to lead, to empower, to encourage, and to make changes within your own communities.
A day where I could see these officials in politics and tell them my ideas of how I, myself, and the other kids in my community can improve the community itself.
Days of action are like the perfect way to really get large and small communities involved in what's going around, what's going on around you, which is a very important thing that we kind of neglect most of the time.
Having a certain cause that you truly believe in, and such as voting rights, and understanding how much your voice really matters on public policy, and then raising that awareness to other people.
I think the youth should be empowered by taking civic action because they want to take hold of their own future and be in control of what's going to happen to their lives.
I think it's important for young people and providers to understand that certain decisions that are made within their own local communities involve elected officials, involve local community members, part of their community board. And unfortunately, a lot of very young people are not familiar with these processes. So we want to make sure that young people walk away from this experience understanding how local politics is actually run and operated and who those players are.
More young people can get involved or taking on civic action by spreading awareness through social media, promoting it to their peers and friends, as well as providing their family with outsources on how to be more productive.
And so as you saw in the slides, over 3,000 young people engaged through this project. So we had over 1,000 young people that attended the DemocracyCorps Day of Action event at City Tech. And so they were hosting a gallery walk expo in which they presented their projects to their peers and other attendees. They hosted workshops that included wellness, yoga, and breathing exercises, presentation on how to activate in the community and do community mapping. We had UNICEF come and also present and table at the event, as well as there was another office commissioner that was there. The human rights, the presentation on human rights, the Commission on Human Rights also did a presentation about data and analytics and how that they can get engaged in those themes. The other cohorts that were part of this initiative created community activations or rally events through the 5 boroughs. UAU had a huge turnout, over 1,000 young people were there. There were some elected officials, the borough's president office, and chair, Councilwoman Debbie Rose was in attendance. And so young people had an opportunity to stand in front of them and talk about their experience and their importance of the topics of interest for them and their needs for their community. We also had the Beam Center, who was engaged, the young people in that group were engaged on Design for Liberation. And so they created, designed and built their own radios and LED light installations to show access. They were exploring, who has access in the city. They were talking about, if they want to get from point A to point B, they thought about other people with disabilities and, how to engage and who has access and the impact on policies that can be created around that. LaGuardia, as I mentioned before, explored all of the themes and they were very arts-based. So their presentations included dance, art, stepping, in regards to those projects. And they also created a community activation event. And so they had a small march around the LaGuardia campus. Are there any questions?
Any questions from members?
Did the kids help?
I don't.
For this iteration, we did outsource it to, but however, as I mentioned, they did have social engagement presence, so they do have videos on YouTube, and they created videos for the community. The event in Staten Island, they did create the flyers, press release, and made the invitations out to the community.
So I just wanna, I don't have a question, I am so excited to see that this took place. I mean, it just goes to my heart as an activist, and I think empowering young people, getting young people to have this opportunity in a way that's both, it relates to their, experience as well as having an impact on the community at large. I really hope that we can expand it and have it as many SYEP, host agencies to learn about this and take it on the road. I mean, this I think is an excellent way to empower young people. So kudos to you guys.
So, just a personal observation for both me and Deputy Mayor Thompson. We both started as teenage activists, so it was coming full circle moment for both of us. And so, in our day, we called it community organizing. We call it project-based learning because it sounds less threatening. Yes, but we think it's important, and I know Phil and I want to figure out how we can do the things to lay the groundwork for the next generation of community leaders, of government officials, and so Phil talked a little bit not as briefly, about how he started as a community activist, and now he's a deputy mayor, and so it's not too early to engage young people, and they're 14 and 15 years old. And so it's important that they understand they have a voice, they can make a difference. And so I think the goal next year is to increase it to 10,000. Is that, that's going to be a challenge. But we think the potential's out there. Next year is an election year. I think young people may not be able to vote, but there are different ways they can get engaged. And this may be something that might interest youth board members and youth community members as something we're building big towards next summer.
I completely agree. This is so incredible. So thank you for the presentation and for bringing us their voices and their dances into the room. Is so important. I was also curious about the future of the program and curious about pathways, right? This is the first step, and clearly you're energizing and activating young people on how are we securing additional pathways onto boards like this in their community. So I was curious about what that kind of next step engagement looks like.
So at the systems level, we continue to engage with the Deputy Mayor's office to elevate the opportunities to 10,000 youth for next summer. And so we also are engaging our CBOs and providers on the ground because they're the ones that have the direct engagement with them. And so we have had conversations with them about at the completion of the program, ensuring that they talk to them about avenues and opportunities and continue to explore those themes and careers and create sustainability around the projects that they have identified. We think that this is also an opportunity as part of the pathway that we are creating for young people. So this 14 and 15-year-olds that had this experience, or at least the 15-year-olds, are going to then transition into the older youth model, potentially then have placement opportunities around industry, civic engagement agencies, and different nonprofits through the city.
So the way to get from 3,000 to 10,000 is engaging more community-based organizations. So
Yes, so we're still developing what that plan and how we make that operational. But the idea and the concept is that we will engage with a larger portfolio. Within SYEP, we have over 60
75,000.
young people, 75,000 young people, and over 60 contractors. So we will engage with larger subset of contractors. This year, we started with 3,000 young people, which was the 5 contractors. So next year, we'll engage more.
We started late this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Next year, we plan on starting in January.
Well, I wondered about building like toolkits around these themes and do professional development for the agencies, which sometimes might be helpful to kickstart some of these you package and make them available or online.
Absolutely, and we did engage the Youth Development Institute to help support the contractors and developing these plans for providers. And so we had a learning community. We brought together all those 5 agencies 3 times throughout the program to roll out the initiative. We met with their executive director level staff to roll out the program. We brought together the staff that was on the ground implementing to share best practices across the agencies. We developed plans, project-based learning plans around those themes so that if an agency, because of the late rollout, we're not ready to develop these plans, we did share resources with them. And we will be bringing them together later this month to have a reflection with them to identify best practices, any other areas of support that as we move forward with the partnership, we can continue to bring to them. I think another point of highlight is that the young people came from across the different program models that we had. So we had youth, vulnerable youth that are nature residents. We had, the community-based traditional SYEP model. So it was a convening of all of the SYEP programs.
Hi, I'm not certain if you engage with HRA and or DHS, but in HRA we have thousands of young people on our caseload, so we would definitely like to be part of this going forward.
I will make sure that we bring back to our leadership and continue to partner. I believe that we do partner with them.
Yeah, the application will probably come out February next year, maybe. This year was a long delay in releasing the RFP, announcing the awards, and we didn't get started until like March, right?
Yes.
So we have learned to do a good 6-week program, we need 6 months of preparation. So in January, we'll be convening the nonprofit partners and then the application. So you can best help us by getting people to apply, because it's a new model for 14, 15-year-olds, and so we didn't want to just pay the young person $15 an hour for busy work. We wanted it to be meaningful, so it's more of a stipend model. So there's a learning curve for us and for our partners. So next year we're starting earlier, so you can help us get the word out with the application.
That's fantastic, thank you, because I think, one of the questions that we have been looking at is, how are students getting to these, who's accessing and where are we missing? And often, the most vulnerable students are still not getting touched, and so we want to make concerted effort to make sure that we do everything in our power to reach out and to integrate and be explicit in that outreach, so thank you for that. We want to continue to do that. Great, if there are any other questions or comments? Thank you.
So, Cynthia, I assume if folks here want to watch more videos or see more photos from the day, they can go on our YouTube and Facebook?
Yeah.
And all social media, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to ask the commissioners, well, first, congratulations on the large sum of funding you have, but
getting the funding from the city council, so it may be annual funding, so is that problematic for having so much funding on an annual basis instead of permanently to set up programs like this? Because it seems like this would get a good learning experience and next year you're gonna do it better. But is it problematic to get funding annually instead of long term?
In 2016, after a New York Times editorial criticizing the city for not having stable funding, the city stabilized the funding. And so we have money that is baseline for 70,000 jobs. So this year the council's contribution was about 5,000 jobs, so it's easier to absorb 5,000 jobs as opposed to, I think, 1 year we got money for 25,000 jobs 2 weeks before the start of summer. So the Times editorial put a light on the issue. The council and the mayor agreed to baseline the funding. So once we had baseline funding, we could redesign the program. So it's been a 3-year process when the council and the mayor agreed in June of 2016 to baseline it to get to this point. So if the council decides to give us more money, it becomes an issue, but 5,000 is reasonable. We were able to absorb it. I think we ended up filling 74,700 and something jobs, so we ended up doing it. In the past, it was a struggle.
So can I just add to that? Before I exiled into academia, I was a long time advocate for funding for this agency, among others, and I will tell you it's extremely problematic. Maybe the commissioner won't say it in these terms, but it's extremely problematic when it's year-to-year funding rather than multi-year funding that is baselined in the budget. And it's one of the ongoing issues, not only for SYEP, but for after school and summer camp and every other program that the agency contracts out. Because the providers, the agencies on the ground who are doing this work can't plan and can't mobilize quickly at the last minute. So my answer is extremely problematic. And never take off my advocate hat, so.
So this may be slightly off topic, but in looking at that video with those young people and the civic engagement, I remember meetings ago we were talking about youth representation on this board. And I know it's been a few meetings since I've been here due to conflict with my office meetings. But I don't know if that conversation has taken place since then, but I'm thinking this is a youth board, youth committee, and we have young people tied to so many different programs that we're here having input on. It would make sense that you would have some type of youth representation on this board. I think we should just give some thought to that, obviously, given the logistics if they're in school. Because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. We're tied to a lot of the programs, but when you don't hear directly from the youth, it opens our eyes to different things. In my office, I always joke, the buyers who send merchandise to the stores, they're good at doing that, but sometimes they assume styles and sizes until they speak with the managers, which we do. Every quarter we bring the managers in and there's feedback the buyers didn't even think of that's helping business. They wouldn't have known that if they hadn't got that feedback from the managers. So I'm thinking youth representation on the board will serve the same purpose and elevate the visibility of these programs. So just a thought, something that should be kind of a strategic direction we go into go forward.
So Greg, perfect segue. Absolutely related and something we're going to talk more specifically about. So before we jump into that conversation, because that's going to be part of the kind of main focus of this next half hour that we have here. We had some new board members who joined us after the introduction, so I just wanted to welcome you all and give you a moment just to say your names to the group.
Hi, I'm Sandy Trujillo. Ana Garcia Reyes, Associate Dean at Roscoe Community College.
Nyla Flake Brown.
Nyla Flake Brown with Brookfield Real Estate.
So would it be selfish to ask for table mics? Commissioner? Thank you. Yes, thank you. So on that, we'll seg to our next portion of the agenda, and you know, just so everyone knows, the reason why we have the mics is because the meeting is recorded and put on the website, and so we just need it for sound purposes. So if we could just remember to ask for the mic so that it can be recorded properly. So thank you for that. So the next part of the agenda, you know, we've talked over the last year about having a time during our meetings where we're more engaged in small group discussion, where it's a bit more action oriented. And so that is what our next portion is gonna be. You know, for this upcoming year, we talked a lot about the theme of continuing ongoing engagement and really like landing the plane on things that we have talked about in different places. And so hopefully the overall goal is to concretize and make real some of these things that we talked about in the last year. And so it's jumping in and rolling up our sleeves and really making things happen the best we can. Some of you have been connected, have talked to either myself, to Liz, or to Jordana about kind of your own engagement this year. If that hasn't happened with you, it will happen in the next couple of weeks, so kind of be on the lookout for a call to get more specific. I think one of the things we have wanted to do is really to understand kind of what space members have and where their interests lie, and to really figure out where they can engage on a personal level, and then figure out where we can collectively kind of move together and accomplish some things on the board. So we're gonna be working both on this kind of individual engagement and kind of collective movement at the same time. So two of the things that have emerged, and please, anyone that has questions, please just grab the mic and ask. So two of the areas also that we have decided to look at this year is our bylaws. You know, this is the most exciting work ever, right? And I know everyone's gonna be want to be part of that incredible group. But the two things we're gonna focus on today is on this question of youth voice, and not only amplifying it, but what does representation of youth voice look like for the New York City Youth Board Youth Committee? And there's been a lot of discussion around the importance of it, but we haven't quite landed on what that could look like, right? Really just developing several ideas of what it could look like, what would we need to do to make that happen. So I'd love for us to maybe break out into two groups, maybe three, if that feels a little bit more manageable. And there's gonna be one bylaws group. Yay, bylaws! I have copies of the bylaws, and I can sit with that group and we can talk about some of the things. One thing I will flag on the bylaws is this question of terms. We have annual elections for officers. Maybe that's a place we'd like to strengthen. We have a couple of other ideas that we can talk about in that small group, including there is no discussion around youth representation on the board. It's not a requirement. It's not in the bylaws. So I think this is something we want to look at more specifically. So we want to take a first pass at the bylaws. Where can we strengthen? What can we lift up that maybe we've forgotten, since it's such an enthralling document? And then the next group, the not so exciting group, is the youth representation group. And here is like, you know, we have 20 minutes. Let's throw down and figure out what this could look like. Let's get maybe 10 different iterations of possibilities of what we could do as a youth board, what needs to happen to ensure that we have greater youth representation here. So that's what I'd love to spend these next 20 minutes on. And then perhaps the two groups can just report out some of the things they're thinking about, what they found, and then we'll wrap up our meeting then. So any questions? No? Everybody's... That's a wonderful question. No, but we'll find someone. So I guess with that, there's no easy way to do this other than if you all want to self-select where you want to be. We can say maybe the right side of the room is the youth engagement representation, and the left side will be the bylaws work. I guess find your, or have, either way. So youth engagements, you can circle your chairs kind of in a weird oblong way here, and then bylaws on the left. And if I need to go rebalance them because everyone is on one side of the table, I'll find some wonderful candidates.
That's a great idea.
We decided we're going to use both sides of the table.
Yeah, I think just because we can look at each other.
There's not enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so worried someone's gonna trip.
So guys, this is like the first conversation.
Let's see.
Hi, how are you? Jeanette.
No worries.
Let's get engaged.
Yes.
Let's get engaged.
Let's do it.
So I'm not sure if everybody heard me. My name is Shahida Smith. I'm Assistant Content and Engagement Manager at DemocracyCorps. So basically my role is to really create opportunities for integration within the unit. And I am somewhat of a specialist because I've been doing it for 25 years. So in terms of the meeting being very important, if a high school student needs to get service credits, that's easy to get over and around if it's just one time or year, or you know what I mean, or quarterly. So just want to throw that out there because everyone's like, oh, their schedule is like, there's so many schools right in this area that they could just walk here and walk right back to school and get credit for it, right? So just wanted to put that out there real quick.
I have to leave early, so I want to throw my idea out. I really thought I was impressed with what went on this summer, and I've been part of the board and some other groups. I personally think that the best way would be to have a parallel group of people who are working on topics and developing a presentation, and that we would meet quarterly or something with them and let them come and present. I mean, because these board meetings, like, we're not like the U.S. Senate. We're not like the Democrats and Republicans getting enough votes to go up and down. We basically endorse what they're doing because it's great. And my experience has been, well, even the board meetings don't necessarily speak that much to the meeting. So I think that I would like them to come and present on a topic that they've been discussing amongst themselves. So I think if DYCD could manage or farm out to an organization to manage a parallel group, like doing the kind of things on the topic, and then come in and like, there's school vacations also, like the spring and the February one. We could have our board meeting on one of those days when kids didn't have to go to school, and there's probably another day in the fall, but whatever. I think 2 or 3 times a year they could come and we could have that as the basic.
I agree. I think that makes sense. I think asking 1 or 2 young people to represent is just too much burden in where they're representing a group would be terrific. But I would also love to see some kinds of focus groups among young people on the various projects. What was their summary? What was their SYEP experience? But again, in a setting where they would really feel comfortable, obviously anonymous, then somebody could report back on it. But I think we should hear that. We should hear both the voices of young people in terms of the general things, but also in terms of their experience.
I think that you can also do a survey to see what the interests are in terms of youth, and then select the topics that have the highest demand for them to present.
In working with the bylaws and understanding,
Just two quick thoughts. One is also we could always have one
working. The other thing is I do think DYC does do a good job serving with a lot of their programs. I think that is happening. We should do more with it. But maybe with all the presentations that the DYCD staff does to us, they don't deliberately try to carve out a 5-minute component of every presentation where kind of student feedback is given some airtime deliberately, because I think that might make us more disciplined to really listen to it. So that's, you know, just a couple of ideas.
I mean, it was mentioned. I mean, it was mentioned earlier. The young people, they get enough days off, right? Spring break, different holidays that they have time off. We should coordinate those times they off to come into one of our meetings. So that way we're not gonna take them out of school.
They come out of school at 3, so it would be good to have something in there.
I think it would also be there's an opportunity to, it's great for them to present us end results, but I think there's an opportunity for them to present things that they're working on. So we as a board can see how we can support and what are the resources that we can provide individually or collectively to help them with their goals.
I also want to add, I didn't know about this amount of sports event, so I definitely think I agree that it should come out of, one of the projects, or some of the others will come out of it, definitely summer experience. But there's also the Youth Leadership Council that's happening around the city, where young people are going to different city agencies and community organizations, where they, learn from, they're supported in terms of working with the agency. The agencies are supported to understand how do you engage young people in their agency. But the end result is a long-term engagement that they can then in turn, be able to be, selected, however the process is, to be part of this work, that they be part of this work. Because I think that those are young people that are supportive of leadership, understanding the bigger picture, the smaller picture, but also being able to bring their own youth experience and their youth voice. Because I think those are the important elements, that they're not just tossed in here alone and supported, there's more than one, young person, and that they're part of a long-term engagement.
Yeah, you really want to create an environment where a young person can be critical, and it's not only saying how wonderful everything is. And you don't want to only pick the kids who are the high flyers. You really want the kids who are struggling, and I think that the idea of in progress makes a lot of sense.
Yes, I wanted to endorse that because project-based learning, the idea is, like they were doing in interviewing people, they could come here and engage in a discussion and an interview almost together. There's a lot of incredible youth leaders here on the board. Like they could learn as part of their process of coming to some conclusions. It's not just a presentation, it could be a dialogue.
And I'm not sure if you all know this or not, but our cornerstones and our beacons, they have youth councils as well as our NABs, and they're really trying to bolster youth councils as well. So what I'm doing currently is I'm working with both units to try to find a way to make that happen. Maybe that would be the children and youth that come here, present during the breaks, things like that, because it's a great opportunity. Project-based learning is something that's done across units, right? They just really implemented it with SYEP, but Sonic has been doing it, Cornerstone has been doing it, so, and being civically engaged is another piece that's really happening across the agency. So there are definitely opportunities to have a diverse group, because we're in detention centers, we have runaway homeless youth, so we can definitely get a good diverse group of kids to be a part of that. So that's what I'm currently working on. But how they can be a part of this is something that I think should come from the youth, because it's youth voice, like asking them what their opinion. Do you want to come and sit in the boardroom, or would you like to take the board members out of the boardroom, right? And give them different opportunities so they can see what it is that they're doing on the ground, right? Or even getting some mentorship from you all in terms of how that should look for them, right? So, because I think that's the meaningful part, right?
I'm interested in going to the grounds where they are, to see the environment, how they work, what they teach, the kinds of things that are of interest to them, what motivates them.
And also to add it to the mix, in prior conversations, the agency has talked about a youth advisory board writ large, but has run into some challenges around, what the staff dynamic would look like, how would young people kind of funnel into that, and so as the agency kind of discusses that, we thought it was important for us to land in a place of clarity around, I think, this is our time to figure out what are the concrete next steps that we wanna take, what are the commitments we wanna make, in making this, again, land the plane, right? We've been flying over it for a while, I think that's where we wanna land next. So, I think if we can identify some concrete next steps, and then, the charge to someone who would like to be part of the organization to kind of continue with this goal, right? Because we do need people to say, this is not gonna go away. And it's gonna drive it through the entire year, moving forward, so.
I'd like to recommend that we definitely engage you in this process because you have that knowledge and then we need to so as well as to engage whoever's depending on the person that oversees the youth leadership council effort and their as well as whoever else. I'd like to participate.
I would participate.
I would.
Alright, so this is the youth.
This is the group.
Youth and this is the group.
Yeah, and I would just ask, I think one of the things maybe this is what the group they're gonna work on, but just having clear goals for what the purposes of the youth board. Cause I think one of the things that at least since I've been here, I remember when I first started, the big question is, what is, like, how do you get board members to engage? And I think we're kind of coming to a place where we realize not just helping comment on ideas and give thoughts as people present, the thing we're focused on now is how can each of us engage. So that has helped all of us, I think, put a little bit more meaning to what our roles are on the board, as opposed to just calling a meeting. So with the young people, I think it's very, like, we should have very specific goals for what we want that board to do, and then if we go the route of a parallel board, how many people, so let's just say it's a board of 7 to 10, I don't know, one thing we could do is, truly parallel it where we have a chair of the board and kind of the same, similar to kind of 2 officers, which I think also creates within that youth board group an opportunity for them to know each other, to recognize leadership within their group, and maybe that smaller, maybe those 2 or 3 people who are elected into a youth chair position would be the ones that come and represent the larger board at this group, and then we can focus more on having kind of activities where the 2 boards come together. So this way we're not trying to figure out how to get just kids who go to school nearby, or worried about just doing how, like, we can use the holidays for those times when the boards come together, but if we're focusing on just those 2 or 3 kids who have the leadership positions, and then we can work with their schools to make sure that, like, when we're trying to coordinate meetings, that at least 1 or 2 of them can be here, that may make it a little bit easier. And then that probably also means, like, people from the board need to be very hands-on and active with that youth board.
Yeah.
So that's one way to do it, but I guess that's what we'll be working on, is to come up with a more concrete idea.
No, thank you for that.
I'm
So-
sorry, I really screwed this up. I'm laughing.
No, we're actually.
But please include me in this group.
Good, you're part of the group.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. Would you be okay maybe reporting back some of what you heard?
Right now?
No, we're gonna pull everybody up. We have 10 minutes, so we're super efficient. I guess if, so for the last 5 minutes, we're gonna, report back. Effectively, these 2 groups are taking the charge of moving this work forward, so thank you all for your excitement and engagement on that. I guess maybe we'll start with kind of the youth engagement committee first.
I was trying to put my notes together so this can, make a little bit of sense. But again, my name is Shahida. Oh, yeah, thank you. Again, my name is Shahida Smith. I am with the Office of Strategic Communication and Stakeholder Engagement. I say it that way because it's a new office, so you have to speak in a different voice to remember it. Anyway, so what this group came up with was several great ideas that we can definitely incorporate youth in this board process. One of them being to create a parallel youth board, right? So the participants, the youth are working on similar topics as the board is working on and presenting out. That's one option. Or another option can be bringing those youth together, be it in focus groups, through surveys, finding out what they want to discuss, right? What they want to take action on, and creating opportunities for them to do so, and bringing them here during maybe holidays, vacations, things of that nature. We also spoke about making sure we have clear goals to what this is going to look like and what youth we're going to attract to it, making sure that the group is diverse and it's coming from different walks of life and different experiences. Another piece of it was really to bring some of those youth who were part of DemocracyCorps, right? And finding out what their experience was at SYEP, the good, the bad, and different, not just the end game, right? The whole thing, the whole process, how it felt for them throughout the summer, throughout the 6 weeks. Another thing is to have them present out on projects that they're interested in, be it again during those breaks that they have during the school year. We want to definitely consider utilizing the PBL with those participants, with those youth board members, as well as going to them, opposed to us always having kids come here, having youth come here. Maybe some of the board members could go out, be on the ground to where the participants, the youth are, activated, running their own youth councils and seeing how we can support that independently through our own networks or through GYCD. And did I cover everything? Did I miss anything? Okay, so we're gonna have 2 co-chairs. It's going to be Ms. Jeanette and Mr. Gary, right? They're going to work together because Jeanette is, she's a jet setter. I don't know if you know that. So she travels for her work. They're going to be working together on creating an agenda for the first meeting, and that's probably going to just be identifying those clear goals. That's about it.
We basically agreed to meet again. And there are several things in the bylaws that need to be looked at. First of all, compensation. The members of the board shall serve without compensation. We want to look at that right away. But I'm just kidding. There are things like term limits for board members that we think need to be looked at. Particularly, there's a problem with the clause that says no officer, director, or key employee of an entity that does business with Department of DYCD can be on the board. That is problematic in that almost every nonprofit in the city has some sort of contract with DYCD, either through the city council, discretionary process, or whatever. And so we are thereby exempting from membership on this board people with a whole lot of expertise, because people who understand youth services and youth development are usually located in those very agencies. So I think we have to look at that. And youth membership on the board. We've had youth members, we don't now. And can we change, and do we want that? And how many is a critical mass so that young people don't feel like they're tokens here and outnumbered? And do we need to change how we meet? Like, do we need to meet in the after school hours so that people can attend, etc.? Do we need to do some training of young people so that they don't feel bewildered when they come here? So these are the issues we're gonna deal with. And Anthony's gonna help us set up a conference call, and if anybody wants to join the conference call, you'd be most welcome.
I think we wanted to be able to come up with some recommendations for language to be able to give to you in terms of youth role and youth participation for the board.
Yeah, I mean, so Sandy, did you determine that you want youth representatives on the board or not?
Yes. We have multiple ways to do it, but I think that'll be our discussion.
Yeah, so that would be great, because I think it hasn't really worked in the past, so if there's a way to have a critical mass of empowered people.
So just to be clear, just so that, I know for me, to understand what the group was talking about, the youth engagement group, you're talking about enshrining in the bylaws official youth reps. Exploring that, yeah, okay, that's fine.
And
Yeah.
different ways to
Okay. Yeah.
Do you wanna mention this possibility of the other entity?
Yeah, so I think it was mentioned in that group, but just to give everyone the context again, because we've, as Alexa said, we have discussed this issue over the past year. We had one programs committee meeting, which is the meeting in between this quarterly meeting. It's an opportunity for members to learn more about programs and how DYC operates. We had one meeting, I think it was last January, that talked about the prospect of developing a youth advisory body to DYCD, because there were some other staff who were looking at this last year. And basically what was determined was that while it was a good idea, we couldn't identify the staffing or other resources to staff that properly. And I believe that if that was something the commissioner and executive committee believe we can do, I think that would actually be a great opportunity for young people, and could provide some of the opportunities to advise this agency in a way that I think some of you may be thinking, be it knowing about what's happening around youth issues and how youth are living their lives now in 2019, to program design, to marketing, to just all those things where I think we want some youth input into how this agency functions. But there's no decision made on that at this time. But I did want all of you to be aware of that context, because that could happen, it may not happen. And even if that happens, we still may want to have some official youth representation here. So, but just wanted to be sure that all the members here were aware of that context as we're entering into these conversations in the coming program year.
Actually, I have a question about that. Would it be helpful if the youth board opined on that subject? If we wanted to say to the commissioner, we think it's an important priority to have a youth voice, a youth advisory group for this agency? Maybe we could do that. I think everybody learned earlier in their careers that a budget is an expression of priorities.
So yes, I mean, if this is something the board feels strongly about, it could be communicated to the commissioner. But then, to be clear, the commissioner working with the executive team would have to figure out how to elevate those discussions internally and see what could be done.
So with that, sounds like I love the advocate over here, very clear. With that, thank you so much for your participation today, your participation in general, and constant advocacy for our young people in New York City. So have a great day. And we will, just so you know, on the agenda, at the bottom of the agenda, there are some upcoming events. If you are interested in any of those particular events, please contact Andre. Also, in your folder, there is, and I think this was also sent to you electronically, kind of updated contact information. Some of the board members have moved around. So stay tuned for more information. Each of the work groups will be facilitating, making sure you guys have what you need so we can continue these conversations and good work. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.